ends to their work as well. Now, of course, while all of those nice policies and positions and so on have been achieved, the progress to date is that, well, while a vision for change has respect for human rights as an underlying principle, there are many areas outside of the mental health services area where it falls short. We're dealing here today with just mental health services, so I won't go into that, but there are lots of, it needs to be refined in the context particularly of children, education system, housing, things like that. The implementation plan for a Vision for Change that was finally published by the HSC in January 2008, I don't know if any of you saw it, but it was, as soon as we saw it, we immediately met with the Oireachtas and the Minister and so on and said it was completely unacceptable. We were very pleased that the Minister for Health instructed the HSC to withdraw the plan. It strikes us that the new plan that the HSC is due to publish quite shortly, having seen recent iterations of it, is likely to be completely unsatisfactory as well. Also, the HSC service plans annually we thought would be a new development so that there would be predictability and transparency in what the HSC was actually planning to deliver in any given year. Specifically in respect of mental health, they've proven not to be at all. The service plan for 2009, as you possibly know, is incredibly modest in scope, vague in commitments, and lacks any detail whatsoever. For instance, where it has set indicators around reducing the number of admissions to inpatient care, there is no parallel commitment to improving facilities in the community. In the 2008 service plan, there was, as Colm referred to, the commitment to having in place by the end of 2008 the 8 child and adolescent mental health teams that the HSC had actually received funding for in 2006. The funding was, in its words, time delayed. So at the end of 2008, we were supposed to have 8 additional child and adolescent mental health teams. And bearing in mind that Ireland has been slammed by the United Nations and the Council of Europe over its track record on children's mental health services, even though those 3 teams were only meant to comprise 7 people, falling short of the 13 recommended in a Vision for Change, we would nevertheless have welcomed that. So we were absolutely aghast that the HSC has reported to the Independent Monitoring Group that just three additional teams were in place. And even at that, we know that they're skeletally staffed. So even the fact of the HSE in its service plan having made that commitment in 2008 made that particular process meaningless. In terms then of financial accountability, we're particularly concerned that it took a freedom of information request from us to discover the fate of the 51 million development money that was provided in 2006 and 2007. Despite repeated parliamentary questions posed by our lobbying network via their local TDs, the HSC persistently said, no, the money's going where it should be. It took a freedom of information request to find out that it was actually time delayed, shoring up core deficits in existing services. So we still don't know where that money is. From our perspective, we are very concerned that government departments beyond health are barely engaging with the Vision for Change, and that'll be, I suppose, Amnesty's priority focus, which if people want to find out more details of that, we'll be particularly happy to talk about that. And of course, as Des pointed out, the Independent Monitoring Group's successive reports, including the one from Monday, do provide an element of detail on the lack of progress. We are just obviously concerned that we need to upscale, upsize our campaign, because it's a critical moment when nothing has happened in 3 years. So for the next 3 years, mental health is going to be an increased priority for us. We really feel that critical to the success of any campaign needs to be mobilising the people who are most affected, service users. And unlike, I suppose, the advocacy sector in other areas, I mean, if you see, for instance, the success of older people, was it like 11,000 people marching outside the Dáil, and getting a reversal of the government's decision in respect of the medical card. You see the power of the people who are actually most affected coming out. But we need to do our part, play our role in, fostering awareness of and the campaigning of people with mental health difficulties. At the moment, we're putting together our campaign strategy, and it's being truly informed by rights holder. It's a rights holder group that's devising it. But critical to that, of course, as well, will be addressing stigma, addressing the public attitudes that disempower the service user voice, and is in itself a barrier to seeking help. We also want to act in whatever way we can to facilitate collective campaigning. As I said, we're a founder member of the Irish Mental Health Coalition, but we really want to seek constructive partnerships with any organisation, including the PNA, so that there's a consistent message collectively being brought to government. So coalition building is an area that we'd like to look at over the next couple of years. And information, I mean, Des referred to it as well earlier. You know, it's like pulling teeth trying to get information on what exactly is going on. You know, the rhetoric around approved posts, allocated posts, I don't know how you do it, I can't figure it out. Trying to get to the heart of how many people, like how much money is a real exercise in patience. So collectively, if we could do information gathering and information sharing, it would really reinforce our lobby and the lobby of all of us. So our long-term goal by 2014 is to make Article 12 real, the right that Colm referred to, so that for any person living in Ireland, they will receive an appropriate mental health service, and that they'll be treated within those services in environments that are respectful of their dignity, and that wider government policy will promote and not negatively impact on their mental health. So specifically over the next 3 years, as I said, we've 4 priority goals to empower the rights holders to demand their own rights. And including, we'll do some work in discrete areas on addressing stigma and discrimination as a barrier to that. We'd very much like to see, as I said, the NGO sector, including ourselves, campaigning together in a consistent fashion on matters that we can agree on. And we're putting together 3 ad hoc sort of alliances, not more coalitions as such, but 3 alliances with particular focus on children, in particular looking at what the role of the education system could be, but also, of course, lobbying for the long-needed services. I mean, it is just scandalous that, as Des was saying, children are still being treated in adult wards these days, 200 every year. And not 16 and 17-year-olds, children as young as 12. And year 2, we'll be focusing on the criminal justice system. And again, this is something that Des referred to. We too are very concerned at the excessive rate of imprisonment of people with mental health difficulties, many of whom are simply just acting out public order offences and so on. And then in our 3rd year, around the area of housing and homelessness, housing and adequate housing is something that repeatedly raises its head in our conversations with service users. We want rights in legislation. Colm spoke about all of the rights that exist at the international level. It's worth bearing in mind that the only real specific piece of mental health legislation we have in Ireland is the Mental Health Act. And that really just applies to people with, who are involuntarily admitted and detained. But that actually, as a result, arose as a result of the European Convention on Human Rights. It was actually a case taken, Croke v. Ireland in 1999, to the European Court of Human Rights that led to that act. The government had to do this under a friendly settlement agreement. So that's one piece of legislation that does not apply to the majority of people. So what we would like to see is a legislative framework that could actually drive the delivery of a vision for change. The policy approach clearly isn't working. The HSE is not coming up with an implementation plan. So we are actually, through the Mental Health Coalition, and if you want to check out our website, you'll see details. We're holding a conference on that, bringing over the current UN Special Rapporteur on health, on the right to health, on the 18th of May. And again, from Amnesty's particular focus, very concerned at the lack of engagement by other government departments. So we'll be looking for a cross-departmental action plan on mental health. So what we want right now, what we're currently lobbying for is, as I said, the HSE implementation plan that's due out now is probably going to be unsatisfactory, so we'll be returning again to lobby for a proper implementation plan that actually tracks the delivery of a vision for change with proper, specific, measurable targets, timelines and costings. Otherwise, it's a piece of paper that is impossible to monitor. We want the quarterly reports